Hi, and welcome to the Arizal Kabbalah, Shaar, Gilgulim, or whatever else we have entitled this year. I'm your host, as always, Rabbi David Katz. Nice big round of applause for Rabbi David Katz. Sure. All right. Since I have obviously lost count of these classes, because we've been doing it for a while, we had a little layoff with the holidays, I am going to do what Microsoft does. Remember how there was Windows 3.1? Everyone type 1. Hey. Then there was Windows 95. Then there was Windows 10. And a lot of other things in the middle. So we're going to call this Kabbalah Shaar Gilgulim Chapter 3. How's that for originality? Are you guys impressed with the originality of that? Shaar Gilgulim Chapter 3. I'm impressed. All right, so let's see. We got Chapter 3. And it goes on a little ways. Let's see how long it goes. We'll be here a little while. Be'inyan ha-Gilgul v'ha-Yivum v'ha-Yibor. Gilgul, Yivum is when someone dies and they, I'll tell you what Yivum is. Who knows what Yivum is? How many of you have ever heard of the two sons of Judah that died? Type 1. How many of you have heard of Machlin and Kilian? And they are the rebirth of the two sons that died through Yivum. Or better yet, I skipped a step. How many of you have heard of Peretz and Zerach? That's what I want to say. The two sons of Tamar. So the two sons of Judah that died and the two sons of Tamar, even though halachically that might not be Yivum, I'm not sure, but spiritually that's called Yivum. You understand that concept? Someone dies and you bring him back, right? Who was it that died? Ruth's husband died, right? And she had the birth with Boaz, and that son was the Yivum from her husband. That kind of concept. And Ibor, spiritual impregnation. V'zeh l'shoyne, ra'iti l'harchiv yaiser b'drozeh shel ha'gilgul, ve'ha'yivum ve'ha'ivor. Hine, Mechinas ha'ibor hi b'chayim v'nizgalel. V'tzayni loimer ki lefamim yuzdaman liyad ha'adam eze mitzvah. Sometimes a mitzvah comes to the hand of a man. Type 1. See that, Mazel Justin B? You explained it before I even got to say it. It was a mitzvah, you said. See that? V'yasena kitakana. He's got to do it. V'az yizdamin lo nefesh achad min ha'ezet tzaddik kadmon. She'asa oiseh ha'mitzvah atma kitakana. So then, a nefesh is invited to him from whichever tzaddik of the primordial tzaddikim, and it is sent to him in order he should do the mitzvah itself as it should be done, ketakana. The kevan shin is damu. And since he had invited him together in the inyan. Inyan I like to translate as complex thing. Everybody right now, think of a complex thing at your work. Type 1 when you've done it. Mine would be when I do names, I write down the names, I got to look it up, write it out, email the person, wait for a response. That's called an inyan. Type 1 when you've copped the inyanim of your life. It's an inyan. Type 1 when you cop your inyanim. So you got to do the inyan of the mitzvah. You see how the inyan is the mitzvah? Is a mitzvah and inyan. Type 1, yes it is. Let's look at Sukkot. Sukkot is really all about inyanim. That's a good chop right there. I got to buy a lulav. I got to buy an esrog. I got to buy the species. I got to buy the holder. I got to tie it all together. I got to buy a sukkah. I got to set up the sukkah. I got to sleep in the sukkah. I got to eat in the sukkah. I got to schwitz over all these different things. That's a lot of inyan for the mitzvah. Mitzvahs have inyanim. Yisavir bo nefesh tzadikahu. So when you have a mitzvah that suddenly comes to you and probably is not in your regular way of observing, the nefesh of a tzaddik comes to you. This is very powerful. This is related to nefesh hager. When the Jewish person, just for the sake of discussion, has a mitzvah, which is by definition an inyan, a complex thing, the nefesh of a tzaddik will come to him to do it. Jacques, by which way will God send the nefesh of the tzaddik to the Jew? Not exclusively, but what is one of the ways? Nefesh ha, come on, say it, everybody. Let's hear it. Big and loud and clear. Ger. Now, what if a ger does a mitzvah and not a Jew? Then all the more so, the ger receives more nefesh hager, making him very gary, much more ger, solidifying his ger. More mitzvahs, more for Jews and gerim, then more ger, more nefesh. And we've already learned, Jacques, more nefesh is more ruach. More ruach is more neshama. More neshama is more elevation. Yada, yada, yada. Pretty good stuff, is it not? And I think now we can understand why Rabbi Nachman speaks about understanding and connecting to the tzaddik. How many of you heard my shear at the wall a couple weeks ago, even a month ago by now, of the message of the tzaddik? Remember that? And making gerim, the tzaddik making gerim, type 1 or 2, Jacques? And we said you have to, like, as per Breslov is concerned, recognizing the tzaddik. You want to hear why I have now realized why what Rabbi Nachman's talking about? Rabbi Nachman is giving a very big sod. If I can recognize the tzaddikim of my generation, that is an illumination. Because if the Torah is all about mitzvot, who was in dinim class on Thursday? Jacques, I think you had to run out. Justin B., were you there? I forget. All right, so remember we said Justin B. 1 second, lost my train of thought. That the learning Torah for the non-Jew is about mitzvahs. You remember that discussion? Talmud Torah is discussing mitzvahs. So if the Torah can be summarized as mitzvahs and learning Torah about mitzvahs, then even the ger, the Jew, whoever it is, really it comes down the nefesh ger to doing mitzvahs, which is why it's absurd telling gerim that they cannot do mitzvahs. What you're saying is you don't have the right to have a soul, which is wrong, obviously. But more importantly, by doing the mitzvah, you're not able to do the mitzvah. Why can you not do a mitzvah? Because it's an inyan that you can't do. Justin B., I want you to fly a Boeing 747, or whatever you call those things. Can you do that for me? What if I send you a tzaddik pilot that will make sure you get to do it? Then we will say you were able to do the inyan. You understand? You were able to pick up the inyan, a complex thing. A greater superior being helped you do it. Right? For a child, walking is an inyan, and dad is there to hold his hand. Type 1. So all in life, Justin B., and Jacques, and John, in your own inyanim, God doesn't need to help you. Lahavdil. You are very competent and capable in your own righteousness doing your inyanim. Type 1. If you are capable of doing your personal inyanim. But sometimes God will bring a mitzvah to you that you need to do inyanim that they're not your inyanim. I'm raising 2 kids, and if you didn't notice, I'm not a female. Right? I'm not necessarily inclined to take care of what were babies. That is a big inyan, and it is a mitzvah. And guess what happens? God brings you the tutelage to do the inyan, type 1. And as we're finding out, what allows you to do the inyan is God brings you the nefesh of a tzaddik, nefesh ger. And Rabbi Nachman would say, by understanding the Torah of the tzaddik, it allows me to connect to the tzaddik, helping me in the inyan of the mitzvah, which allows me to do the mitzvah. So if I am open to doing more mitzvahs, then I understand the Torah of the tzaddik. And if I make gerim, then by definition, gerim are applicable to every kind of mitzvah, therefore every kind of tzaddik, and therefore the Torah of the tzaddik. And when that is revealed, then I have a revelation of Mazel and revelation of the Shekhinah. Type 1, because that was just awesome. That's how it is. Gerim are a problem for Israel, says the Midrash. Why? Because they are mitzvah machines. When you invite a ger into your life, that means you are inviting nefesh ger, nefesh tzaddik for the inyan of the mitzvah by definition. A ger is not interested in watching the paint dry on a wall with you. A ger is only interested in the mitzvah. Thereby making a revelation of the tzaddik, That's why they are called Gerei Hatzedik. And the revelation of that, obviously, is the mazel. What do you think, Jacques? What do you think, Justin B? Loretta, good to see you. John? This is powerful stuff. Velo. Ela שגם אפשר שביוז גם את צדיק אלו נמצאים בו בזמנו בחיוב. תסעבר בו נפשו לסיבה נסחרס כי געשר האיש. הזה יעשה איזה מצווה או מצווס. המסייחס אל הצדיק ההוא. You can tell that tzaddik by the nature of the mitzvah. Ki gam hu asa kamohu ketiknam as tis aver bo nefesh hatzadik ahu. He can come to you even in your lifetime. So if you were born to do a mitzvah, then the tzaddik will be attached to your nefesh. You understand that? I'm guessing in your makif, or makif of the nefesh, the surrounding soul. If I was born to do the mitzvah of tzedakah, then Shem would be attached to my nefesh to help me do it. Because Shem was all about tzedakah. If I suddenly won the lottery and now I want to give $1 million of tzedakah, Shem would come and attach himself to my nefesh or something like that. Very interesting. How many of you have ever heard of King David? How many of you have ever heard of Yehonathan? Jonathan? How many of you heard people corrupt and pervert the concept that David loved Jonathan? Well, this is what the Arizal is saying the secret is. David and Jonathan are explained in this way because they were doing mitzvahs together. So how many of you have heard of King David? How many of you would say King David was a tzaddik? So the Arizal is telling you, even the tzaddik that's alive, into the man that's alive, can help you do mitzvahs. So David was a tzaddik helping Jonathan do mitzvahs. And Jonathan was a tzaddik helping David do mitzvahs. That's why they clung together and loved each other. I'm going to go on a limb here, a big limb here. I'm going to guess that a woman comes to a man as Eve was brought to Adam because a woman is just a little more righteous than the man, and she's helping him do mitzvahs. And when she comes to him, he's complete, and he becomes a tzaddik, and he helps her do mitzvahs. And both of them have to make a declaration that they are righteous now by the fact that they're together, and now they have to do mitzvahs, which obligates them and binds them to the Torah. I like that. That a lot. Amar HaKoisiv, Nira given mitzvah achas kitikoine, Yaspila Hamshik Tchil Ibor, Velo Yitzarek L'Sheyishtalim B'Kol Mitzvahs Akr. The verse says, it appears when one mitzvah is done as properly, you speak L'Hamshik Tchil Ibor, then that Ibor is done, and he doesn't have to partake in all the mitzvahs. However, Bechinas HaGilgul tzarich laharchiv miyad b'inyana l'chin nitchil inyana ma'adam harishon lekishi yishvenu advarim b'nikal. What does that say? However, Bechinas HaGilgul tzarich laharchiv miyad b'inyana l'chin nitchil inyana ma'adam harishon. That's when it's an ibor, a spiritual impregnation. But when it's a Gilgul, you're born that way. Then it starts with Adam Arishon and Adam, and it goes from there. And we are going to stop on that cliffhanger right there. Because that's a good cliffhanger to stop at.